You know that feeling, right? I mean, it's almost visceral. It kind of starts in your stomach. You start a project, maybe it's a new job, or, maybe you've decided to finally write that sci-fi novel that's been in your head for a decade. And at the beginning, the energy is just electric. It's intoxicating. You've bought the new notebooks, the really expensive ones. You've color-coded your calendar. You've told all your friends. You feel completely unstoppable. It's like the honeymoon phase of productivity.
That is the new car smell of work. It's fresh, it's exciting,
Yes,
and it masks all the mechanical issues underneath.
exactly. But then 3 weeks pass, maybe 3 months if you're lucky, and suddenly that initial spark is just
And
gone, vaporized. You wake up, you look at the to-do list, and you just feel heavy. The finish line feels like it's a million miles away, you're tired, and you're just stuck in the mud, and you start thinking, maybe I'm just not cut out for this.
the slump. Or, as a lot of behavioral psychologists and startup founders call it, the trough of sorrow.
The trough of sorrow. Wow. It sounds like a location in a fantasy novel, but it feels incredibly accurate.
It is dramatic, but it's also universal. And this is the critical point. The trough is usually the moment where people quit. We rely so heavily on that initial burst of, adrenaline and novelty that when it evaporates, which it always does biologically, we assume the project is broken. We think, oh, I'm not excited anymore, so I must be on the wrong path.
Or we think we're just lazy. We just internalize it as a character flaw.
Right. But today, we are diving into a set of materials that suggests this drop in motivation isn't a signal to stop. It's not a moral failing. It's actually just a signal that you're using the wrong fuel source.
So it's a check engine light, not a totaled car.
Exactly. It's a signal to change tactics, not targets.
Okay, I love that distinction. So the source material we are deep diving into today is a guide called Beyond the Finish Line, Sustaining Vision When Motivation Wanes.
Hmm.
And I have to say, the mission here feels different. We're not looking for hacks to work harder or, drink more coffee. We're trying to solve the specific psychological mechanics of that letdown period.
We're solving the problem of the trough. How do you keep walking when the path isn't fun anymore?
And the core thesis here is something I think we all need to hear, but honestly, it's a bit of a hard pill to swallow. The source argues that relying on fleeting emotional motivation is a trap. It's amateur hour. The goal, and what we're going to unpack, is shifting toward durable strategic discipline.
That phrase is the anchor for everything today. Durable strategic discipline. Because think about it. Motivation is an emotion. It's a feeling. And like all feelings, happiness, sadness, anger, it fluctuates based on sleep, weather, blood sugar, stress.
Wish you had for lunch.
Right. If you build a house on a foundation of feeling like it, the house falls down the moment you have a bad night's sleep.
Which is terrifying, because I think I spent half my life waiting to feel like working. I just sit there waiting for the lightning bolt to hit me.
Most people do. It's the artist's dilemma. But this source is basically saying, stop waiting. Discipline is a system, not a feeling. You can rely on a system even on your absolute worst days.
Okay, so let's get into the nuts and bolts of this system, because be disciplined is, it's easy to say but hard to do. Sounds like advice your grandfather gives you.
Walking uphill both ways.
Exactly. The guide starts with a concept called re-engaging the why. Specifically, it talks about the vision statement. And I'll be honest with you, when I read vision statement, I rolled my eyes a little bit. It just sounds so corporate.
Oh, absolutely. I'm right there with you. When people hear that, they think of a plaque on a corporate lobby wall that says, "We value excellence," which, nobody reads and nobody cares about. It feels performative.
Totally. It feels like a line item on a kickoff agenda.
Yeah.
You write it, you feel good, you file it away in a Google Drive folder, and you never look at it again. It just collects digital dust.
And that is exactly where the mistake lies. The source argues that the reason those statements fail isn't that the vision is bad, it's that the document is dead. They argue your vision statement needs to be a living document.
But what does that actually mean in practice? How do you keep a document alive? You have to water it.
In a sense, yeah, it means it's a tool for navigation, not decoration. You have to actively interact with it. The source suggests a regular scheduled vision check-in. You look at your initial vision, that big, beautiful picture you had at the start, and you physically compare it with your current reality.
So it's a gap analysis.
Precisely. It forces you to look at the map. Because when you're in the weeds, when you're answering emails, debugging code, formatting spreadsheets, you lose perspective. You get tunnel vision. You forget why you are suffering through the spreadsheet. The check-in forces you to zoom out and say, oh, right, I'm doing this boring thing because it moves me toward that specific outcome.
That makes sense. It's reconnecting the daily grind to the big picture. But the source takes this a step further with reframing. And this is where I want to push back a bit, because reframing can sometimes sound like toxic positivity, like just smile and it won't hurt. Is this just lying to ourselves?
Yeah, I get that hesitation, but the source isn't talking about lying to yourself or pretending things aren't hard. It's about functional thinking. It's about utility. They use the example of filing a report.
Right, possibly the most boring task imaginable.
Exactly, a mundane administrative task. The default internal narrative is, I have to file this report. That narrative creates resistance. It's a burden. It's something happening to you.
It feels like a tax on my time. Like I could be doing something cool, but I have to do this.
Yes. And that feeling drains energy before you even start. So the source suggests a deliberate mental shift. You don't say, I love filing reports. That would be delusional. You reframe it to, filing this report is what enables the next phase of the project.
Okay, I see the difference. It's subtle, but you're turning the burden into a key.
You are reconnecting the tedious how, the paperwork, back to the driving why, the project's success. It sounds simple, but psychologically, it changes the task from a roadblock into a stepping stone. It gives the brain a logical reason to engage.
So it's not about pretending the task is fun. It's about reminding yourself of its utility.
Exactly. It's logic, not magic.
All right, so we've got the vision check-in to keep us oriented. Now let's talk about movement. The source moves on to strategic momentum. And this section really caught my attention because it attacks what they call the myth of intensity.
This is a big one, especially in startup culture or, academic circles. We glorify the sprint, the all-nighter, the hustle mode. We think momentum means going 100 miles per hour until we collapse.
But isn't there a time for that? I mean, sometimes you just have to grind, right?
For a day, sure, but for a long-term vision. The source says that high-intensity output is biologically unsustainable. You cannot sprint a marathon. If you try, you burn out at mile 3. The source distinguishes between intensity and consistency. You want consistent strategic movement, even if it feels slow.
Yeah, and to get that movement, especially when we're in the trough and feeling stuck, the source introduces the science of small wins. Now, we hear about small wins a lot. Is this just break it down, or is there something more technical happening here?
Oh, there is hard biology here. It's about hacking your dopamine system. Dopamine is the molecule of more. It's the reward chemical. When you accomplish a task, your brain releases a hit of dopamine, which makes you feel good. But more importantly, it makes you want to repeat the behavior.
It's the fuel tank.
It is. But here's the trap. If your task is finish the project and the project takes 6 months, you get 0 dopamine for 6 months. Your brain looks at the effort versus the reward and says, bad deal, I'm out.
So the brain effectively goes on strike because the paycheck is too far away.
Exactly. So the strategy is to manufacture micro wins. You need to create tiny finish lines that you can cross every single day to keep the dopamine flowing. You have to trick your brain into thinking it's winning constantly.
The source provided a table of examples here that I found really, really helpful. Let's look at the documentation one again.
Right. So if you have complete the Q3 financial report on your to-do list, that's terrifying. It's huge. You don't know where to start. So you procrastinate. The source says, strip it down. The task isn't the report. The task is draft the executive summary.
That feels manageable. I can do that in 30 minutes before lunch.
And once you do it, boom, dopamine. You feel a sense of completion. And that chemical hit gives you the energy to tackle the next small piece.
They had another one for skill acquisition, like if you're trying to learn to code.
Yeah, master Python. That's not a task. That's a life goal.
Yep.
It's overwhelming. The micro win is complete one online module, or even write one functional script.
My absolute favorite was the creative project example. Because I think anyone who has ever tried to do something creative, write a book, paint a series, feels this paralysis. The task, write a novel, is terrifying. Just looking at those words makes me want to take a nap.
It's paralyzed by its own scale. Write a novel is an abstract mountain, but the source suggests
Outline the next chapter. See? That's so much less scary. Write a novel is impossible today. Outline one chapter is just 20 minutes of work.
And that is the secret to momentum. You aren't tricking yourself into working harder. You are lowering the barrier to entry so low that you can't say no. And once you start, the momentum builds itself. You're reducing the activation energy required to begin.
I love that term, activation energy. It's just like physics. It takes more energy to start the car than to keep it rolling.
Precisely.
So we've got the vision check-in to handle the why, and micro wins to handle the momentum. Now we move to the section that I think is the backbone of this whole philosophy, ritualizing work.
This brings us back to that core idea we started with. Motivation is fickle. Habit is dependable. The goal of ritualizing work is to remove willpower from the equation entirely.
Because willpower is a finite resource, right?
Yeah.
I've heard this called decision fatigue.
That's it. Every time you make a choice, what to eat, what to wear, when to work, you burn a little bit of mental energy. If you wake up and have to debate with yourself, should I work on the book now or later, at the desk or on the couch, you are exhausting yourself before you've even typed a word.
You're fighting a battle just to get to the starting line.
Exactly. The source suggests time blocking as a way to automate the when. But, and this is important, it's not just trying to find time. It's about rigid allocation.
But how rigid can we actually be? Because, life happens. The kids get sick. The car breaks down.
Of course life happens. But the source argues that for your core vision task, you need a sacred block, even if it's small. The example given is 9:00 a.m. to 10:30 a.m. That time is non-negotiable. It's not for email, it's not for Slack, it's not for checking the news, it is for the work. If you do that consistently, you don't have to find motivation at 9 a.m. You just show up because that's what time it is.
It becomes automatic, like brushing your teeth. You don't need to be inspired to brush your teeth, right? You just do it.
Precisely. You want your work to have the same automaticity as dental hygiene. And you can support that habit with environment design.
This is about cues.
Right. Yes. Our brains are associative machines. We link places to behaviors. If you try to work on your novel in the same chair where you watch Netflix and scroll TikTok, your brain is confused. It asks, are we working or are we relaxing?
So the signals are crossed.
Right. You want to set up your workspace so that the moment you sit down, your brain knows, okay, we're working now. Maybe it's a specific playlist. Maybe it's a certain type of tea you only drink when working. You are building a Pavlovian response to your own desk.
I love that. It's reducing the friction of starting. But there's one more piece to this ritual puzzle: accountability. But they're specific about this. It's not just telling a friend, I'm writing a book.
No, vague accountability is useless. Asking, how's the book going, allows you to lie and say, good, even if you haven't written the word. We've all done that. The source suggests a partner who checks in on your next task list.
That ties back to the micro wins.
Right. You tell your partner, by Friday, I will have outlined chapter 4. Now on Friday, the question is binary. Did you outline chapter 4, yes or no? There is no room for spin.
It forces you to be honest about the granular progress. It keeps you focused on the immediate step, not the overwhelming finish line.
Exactly. It keeps you honest in the present tense.
Okay, so we're building this machine of discipline. Vision, micro wins, rituals. But here's where it gets really interesting for me. Because usually productivity advice stops there. It's just go, 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 optimize. But this source has a massive section dedicated to what it calls proactive restoration.
And this is critical. If we connect this to the bigger picture, burnout is the #1 enemy of sustained vision. You can have the best habits in the world, but if you are physically and mentally depleted, biology wins. You will quit.
And the source treats rest in a very specific way. It's not a reward.
Right. Most of us view rest as a luxury, a treat you get if you finish the work. Or worse, we view rest as what happens when we collapse. The source calls that reactive rest. You work until you break, and then you rest to repair.
Which is so inefficient. It's like driving the car until the wheels fall off.
It's terrible for sustainability. The source advocates for proactive restoration, treating rest as a critical component of the work plan. It's maintenance, not repair. You change the oil in your car before the engine smokes, not after.
There was a visual included in the source material that I think really drives this home. It's a picture of a calendar.
Yeah, let's look at that. It's a standard weekly planner. You see meetings scribbled in, calls, deadlines. But then, right across the middle of the week, across multiple days, there are these big blocks colored in. And inside, in big block letters, it says, rest and restoration.
It looks like a client meeting. It's written with the same pen, the same importance.
That's the key takeaway. You have to schedule your downtime just as you would schedule a deadline. If it's not on the calendar, it won't happen. Something else, a favor for a friend, an extra email, will always fill that space. Calendars abhor empty slots.
But what does that rest look like? Because the source distinguishes between just zoning out and what it calls active recovery.
Yes. This is where most people get it wrong. We think scrolling through social media for 2 hours is rest. But cognitively, you are bombarding your brain with information, comparison, bright lights. It's not recovery, it's stimulation.
It often leaves you feeling more drained than when you started. You get that, like, zombie mode kicking in.
Exactly. Active recovery means engaging in activities that are completely unrelated to your primary vision task and use different parts of your brain.
So if your project is staring at a screen all day, your recovery shouldn't be staring at a different screen.
Precisely. That leads into the digital detox strategy mentioned. You need to plan specific time away from inputs. If you're writing a book, go for a run. If you're coding, cook a complex meal. You need to disengage the parts of your brain that are overworked.
I think that's where I fail most often. I take a break by looking at my phone, and I wonder why I'm still tired. I'm just switching inputs, not stopping the flow.
You're essentially cross-training your brain. You can't just keep hammering the same muscle.
There's one last element to this restoration piece that I found really poignant, and that's combating isolation. Because long-term projects, they can be incredibly lonely.
They can be. And isolation drains motivation faster than almost anything else. When you're in the trough, you feel like you're the only one struggling. You look at LinkedIn and everyone else is crushing it. You feel like the only failure.
So what's the solution here? Because asking for help can be hard, especially when you feel like you're failing.
The solution is to be strategic about it. Seek mentorship and peer support. But again, be specific. Don't just meet to complain. The source suggests scheduling meetings specifically to discuss mid-project fatigue and long-term planning.
That is so specific. Instead of just saying, let's catch up, you're saying, hey, I'm in the middle of this marathon and I'm hitting the wall. Can we talk about strategy?
It normalizes the struggle. When you hear a mentor say, oh yeah, the middle phase is always the worst, here's how I got through it, it validates your experience. It reminds you that the slump isn't a sign that you're broken, it's just part of the process.
It reframes the struggle as a shared experience rather than a personal failure. Exactly. So if we zoom out and look at this holistically, we're looking at a complete ecosystem for handling long-term goals. We start by accepting that the slump, the trough, is inevitable.
Right. We stop beating ourselves up for losing that initial excitement.
We stop relying on willpower and start relying on systems. We reconnect with our why by treating our vision as a living document and reframing the boring stuff as necessary enablers.
Then we build momentum with micro wins, breaking the mountain down into pebbles. We draft the summary. We outline the chapter. We chase that dopamine hit to keep the engine running.
We ritualize the work with strict time blocking and environment design, so we don't have to decide to work. We just do it.
And finally, we protect the machine with proactive restoration. We put rest on the calendar in permanent marker, and we engage in active recovery to actually recharge, not just zone out.
It's moving from, I hope I can do this, to, I have a plan to do this.
That's it. It's about shifting from the amateur mindset, which relies on inspiration, to the professional mindset, which relies on discipline and recovery.
So what does this mean for you, the listener? Whether you're 3 months into a startup, halfway through a degree, or just trying to get back into shape, the trough is going to come. If it hasn't already, it's waiting for you around the corner. But abandoning the project isn't the only way out.
The way out is through. But you can't white-knuckle your way through it. You have to build the bridge.
I want to leave you with a thought to mull over today, something that really struck me when looking at that calendar image. I want you to mentally pull up your own calendar right now. Look at next week.
This raises the most important question of the day.
Do you see rest scheduled there? And I don't mean a blank space where you hope nothing happens. I mean a dedicated, non-negotiable block for restoration, treated with the same respect and rigidity as your most important client meeting. Because if you don't, ask yourself, are you planning for success or are you unwittingly planning for burnout?
That is the question.
Thanks for diving in with us. We'll see you next time.